Hey there, YouTubers and fellow folks in recovery, people contemplating recovery, and those of us who are friends of folks in recovery. My name is Jeffrey, and I was a former colleague of Ms. Perez's. We worked together in this not-to-be-mentioned facility on Staten Island, New York, of course. And I had the good fortune of working with this lady, and we worked well with one another. And our styles are very, very similar in that we're organic in nature, and we kind of go with the flow, which is the exact attitude that you need in this current environment. We are in the realm of the unknown. It is unprecedented. The only time I can even remember feelings of anxiety and depression and the desire to want to use a substance to take all of that away. The only thing I can, in my memory, that I can remember is September 11th, 2001 in New York City. As I said, I hail from there as well, and I do identify as somebody in long-term recovery. And so you'll want to pick up one of these t-shirts here from Alyssa. She does create them herself. And you can certainly go to her Snapchat or her Insta, and you can figure out how to get one of these lovely things. $20. And you're supporting a local business and a mental health and substance abuse counselor, which is something we desperately need right now. We have a lot of people out there who are literally aimless and clueless as to how to help quell their anxieties. People are used to going to meetings. People are used to coming to sessions. People are accustomed to having access to all sorts of resources that are now closed. And we're all kind of white knuckling it from our seat's edge in our homes. And I know full and well, having lived most of my life in New York City, that your homes are not conducive to staying in for a long period of time because of their size. In this case, size does matter because you are virtually trapped in a prison that you didn't ask for. So what do we do to stop ourselves from going crazy, from sticking a needle in our arm or drinking our sorrows away with a gallon of vodka? It's a good question. There's a lot of things we can and cannot do, or supposedly cannot do, and one of them is leave our house or keep it to a bare minimum, that is. And once you walk out the door, where do you go? Because everything's closed. People look at you with stink eye if you're not wearing a mask, which, by the way, you can pick up these babies at a store here in Charlotte. That's where I moved to a couple of years ago, just because I adore New York City. I love New York City, but I wanted my quintessential Manhattan apartment, but I couldn't afford it, so I had to buy it in Charlotte. It's a lovely city. At any rate, so I'm down here, and I see all of the goings-ons on the news by choice. The news. What I mean by that is I selectively watch and listen to news. I would highly, highly suggest, for the quelling of one's anxiety, do not watch the news. There is no information that is new. There's nothing that's more shocking than what we've already seen. They're going to tell you to use hand sanitizer. They're going to tell you that you got to cover up your face and your mouth and your nose. And they're going to tell you that lots and lots of people are dying, which I'm kind of intertwining some of my points here. And one of them is that, the media sensationalizes, as we know full and well. I have chosen to block it all out. I look at media that I carefully select, and anything that happens to flash before my eyes that I think is a little fishy, like something to the effect of 17 million people died in Italy alone. Those statistics don't seem right to me. So I look them up. I find sources, I look for sources, and I started doing this in about, let's say 2015, 2016, when a certain election was happening. I just didn't buy a lot of what was being said and what I was hearing and what I was seeing. So I just started becoming skeptical of not only the source of the information, but the information giver themselves. We probably know who I'm talking about, but I want to not go political in this. So I suggest to help quell anxieties and to alleviate any frustration and or fear, don't watch the news. Like, honestly, don't watch it, because with very few exceptions, anything we see on mainstream and network television, NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox, most certainly, and all of these news programs are loosely that news, and it's so much of its opinion and speculation and rhetoric that's uninvited. Don't do it to yourself. So if you're going to look for information, which is very different than the news that we're seeing right now, is I would suggest going to reputable sites like go to World Health Organization. They've got some amazing statistics that are true, that are fact-based, that are not of any political persuasion. Anything on NPR or locally for NPR is usually safe, and if it is of a certain persuasion, you usually know it ahead of time. But they're good with information. Also check out BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, not BBC, what you see on some social media, if you know what I mean. At any rate, the BBC, the British Broadcasting Company, just to be clear, is a great source of information. They have the CDC of Great Britain is probably, well, it's not probably, it is far better than the United States is. And they have all of the latest information because they are in the thick of it as well, and they've been dealing with it longer than we have. Or most of us have anyway, those of us who were privy enough to receive that information. So at any rate, don't look at media is the lesson here. Look at those reputable sites, and there's some great statistics, which leads me into my next point. If you're one of those people who are looking at numbers and they just seem to be rising and rising, and there's just no control in sight, and especially, in all seriousness, for those of you in New York City, we saw it on our streets. We saw carnage on our streets, quite literally. The trailers full of the deceased, and those are images people are probably gonna have for the rest of their lives. Much like 9/11 is burned in my head. From what I saw that day. This is the same thing, but one of the major differences is that it keeps going. It's ongoing. And so where September 11th was, the initial impact was in one day, and then obviously the residual, here we are 20 years later still talking about how crazy it was. So this is going to be that, but I think a little more so, because 9/11 was very focused and it was compartmentalized to one part of Lower Manhattan, whereas this is anywhere. It can happen tonight, it can happen next week, maybe it'll happen in a month. We don't know, and those variables are terrifying. So, but when we look at statistics and when we talk about the statistics, we have to understand that a lot of what is being thrown about in the media, 10,000 people dead in one day, those sorts of things. Well, there's hundreds of thousands of people who die each day in the world, and that's normal. That's what happens. The statistics of New York City, I think it's something like 1,700 people a day die within the 5 boroughs. And so you hear these sensational numbers and you think, oh my God, there's no end in sight, it's doom and gloom. But it's because the events, the disease, the timeline is exponential, meaning it doubles very, very quickly. However, if you look at the overall statistics, meaning that if we look at them and if they were a low example, meaning if they went on a normal timeline with a normal progression, much like the regular flu does, or any other kind of disease, you would see that it's not any different. In fact, it's far less severe in some cases. And you hear the statistics, the projections, and I think right now as of today, which it is as of today, April 12th, I believe, it's after midnight. I think it's the 12th. Anyway, around there we are right now. And so the figure hit 20,000, I think, over the weekend. That said, it's a lot, and a vast majority of that was in New York, and specifically New York City. So you guys all felt it a lot worse than the rest of the country. But the truth of it is, the numbers, if you look at it in a linear context, and let's hope that this thing is gone within the next few weeks, it's over and done, fast and furious. It's the numbers don't look anything different than anything else we've got out there. In fact, it's far less severe. If you look at this in comparison globally, let's say, you look at it globally with 8.5 billion people in the world, or whatever the current number is, this isn't a lot, dare I say, and that's the truth of it. Again, it's all relative, and I know folks in New York City were especially hit and continue to be, and our hearts go out to that. But as a scientist and someone who looks at numbers and such, and if you're making yourself crazy by looking at all these statistics, don't do it. Don't do it. Again, World Health Organization, CDC, which is the Centers of Disease Control, and some of our other trusted media outlets that are actual fact and not political rhetoric or anything to that nature. But don't get too alarmed and don't get too hung up on the numbers, because it's going to make you insane, or more insane, at least in my case. And it didn't take the coronavirus to make me this way anyway. But at any rate, if you're a statistician, which not many of us are, it's like in grad school and I kind of know some things, the numbers aren't overwhelming at all. If you compare it to cigarette smoking in this country, which is legal, 500,000 people a year die from cigarette smoking, and who knows how many others are sick or who have not been connected to it directly. So those numbers are staggering numbers. The alcohol-related deaths, which are legal, that means either cirrhosis of the liver, heart failure or heart events, car accidents certainly, domestic violence that leads to homicide and suicide. All of those deaths, those are 1.5 million in this country per year, at least. It may be, but it's about 1.5 million. So that, compared to the 20,000 we have deceased so far, it's not, and hopefully it's not going to get much higher than that. Even if it triples, it's still not going to compare to car accidents. Car accidents alone are about 2 million people per year. 2 million people die in car accidents. Are we going to make cars illegal? Now I sound like a gun person, but even, which I'm not, by the way. And certainly I hear that a lot. Well, if guns aren't, if guns kill people, then we need to illegalize cars because they kill people too. Yeah, they do, but for this point, I'm saying that a couple million people die per year in car accidents, and we don't seem to be too alarmed about that, and the gun deaths, the 12,000 year by handguns, yet nothing goes undone, even though kids get shot up at school every day somewhere. But again, if we look at this disease, and I'm just trying to prove a point here that, if you have doom and gloom on your mind, which you will if you succumb to the media, and what they have to say and what their rhetoric is, you're going to think in catastrophic terms. This is not catastrophe. The scary thing is it's happening all at once. And it's happening all over the world simultaneously. So we notice it rather than it being spread out. And speaking of that, let's talk about malaria, HIV, AIDS. In the whole sub-Saharan Africa is dying. 75% of them are infected with malaria or HIV, AIDS, or both. And, it's a real grim picture there, but those numbers far exceed anything we will ever experience in the United States or in the Western world. So, that brings me to another point. It's looking at your gratitude list, looking around you. I'm literally looking around my place right now, and the things that I have are just really lovely. And I appreciate them, and my husband and I worked for them. And so I find joy in that, finding joy. A lot of the stuff that we hear in early recovery, coping skills, coping mechanisms, using up our time. So what do we do in this case when we have all the time in the world? We don't have anywhere to go. We can't even really, we're not even supposed to have people over to our homes. Like, what do? Well, make a project out of anything. Let's see, I have here, right here. I have Alexa. Hi, Alexa. Alexa, what are you doing?
I'm here, ready to answer your questions.
See, so you have Alexa, old trusty Alexa's here to help you through the day. And in all seriousness, there's a lot of pretty funny shit that she does, so you can really explore. But one that I found that after I listen to my 4.5 minutes of NPR in the morning, which is enough while I'm in the shower and I get frustrated, there's an application on Alexa where you can be inspired. So you just merely say, Alexa, inspire me. So as you can see, you can have fun with your technology. I've been, playing around with video quite obviously in this context. I don't have time to dig around on my devices and I found some really cool stuff in some of the media and video apps, so you can look at that. We have literally everything in the world accessible to us. If you have the blessings to be able to do a little shopping on Amazon and such, do it wisely, because you can get into a lot of trouble. We can apply a lot of our alcoholic and addict behavior towards impulsive spending. But if you give yourself a little budget, let's say, I don't know, conservatively $20 a week, you can seriously find a few things for $20 on Amazon. It's doable. And so, any little bit of budget money that you might have left over, which leads me to another point, and we'll get into that in a second. A friend of mine who's a designer, she moved to Charlotte, and she's out of New York. She has a cute, amazing boutique here called Jade Sky. And if you go to jadesky.com, you can find all of these beautiful little masks. And she's got many varieties. They're cute. And so if we're gonna have to do this stuff, wear these gloves and these masks, we might as well have fun with it, It can be fun. You can make these yourself if you have a sewing machine, or even not, if you know how to hand stitch something, then just do it. Just try it. Who cares? It's not like you got any time, don't have time, which you do. The recipe for disaster is huge here. You've got anxiety, you've got time, no structure. It's the addict's dream. And all of our devices connect to, the forces that be with us, which are the dealers and such, liquor stores that deliver, whatever. It's dangerous on a lot of levels for folks who are in recovery, especially early recovery. So be careful, guys. I hate to, be the old if you need to, waste some time, just journal. Well, writing and journaling is great, and I'm not knocking it by any means, but that's kind of one of the go-to coping skills. However, you can put a new spin on it. I chose to use my journals with my humor, which can be very dark. It can be very ironic and witty. So, why wouldn't your journal have the twins from The Shining on it? Why would you not do that? It's fantastic. These things in Groupon, you can find these apps that will, or Walgreens, I think, or Dwayne Reed. Dwayne Reed has, the photo services. You can have anything put on anything. I had a blanket of me made for a friend of mine. Now, can you imagine that? And it's always, for those of us who are long enough in the tooth to remember one who flew over the cuckoo's nest, this lovely, lovely lady, she would come around delivering medication in the evenings. Very sinister. So, it's another thing. Netflix, there's a million things on Netflix, There's a million things on Hulu, there's a million things on YouTube, whatever, for free. You don't have to pay for them. Or you can get one of the trial prescriptions. Listen to me, speaking of Nurse Ratched. You can get one of the trial memberships, and if you cancel within a month or within a week, whatever, you can watch all this crap. So you can consecutively do HBO one week, you do Netflix the next week, you do on ESPN, to pay one for that, and you can do these like little teaser subscriptions, but remember to cancel them or else you're gonna have a big bill in a month, and see stuff that way. We can do the Zoom media. We can schedule a mocktail hour and get all our friends together, say at 5 o'clock, we're all meeting with a Coca-Cola in hand, and we're gonna shoot the shit. And the buzzword is coronavirus. Anyone who says coronavirus has got to, eat a raw hot dog or something. I don't know, whatever. Just have fun with it, back in the day, I'm sure some of us indulged in happy hours. I know I did, many. And my happy hour usually was like 24 hours maximum. So, there's a lot of online meetings. I mean, this is the world we're in right now, and it's a test as to how we can function as a society. I do all my counseling sessions, virtually, just like this. And, I had an aversion to it, but it's growing on me. And when you're limited with your options, when that's all you can do or get no therapy at all, then, take it. It's good. There's just, it's a whole new intrepid world that we're figuring out, Speaking of shopping, we can't go into stores really, but if you are on the edge of your seat and you need to get out, by yourself or what have you, just stroll down the street, and if there's a Walgreens or a Dwayne Reed open, just walk in, peruse it, look at everything, read labels, explore your local pharmacy, and look at product and things, and just, occupy your time. And what I've been doing is I actually make a game with myself. I haven't explained any of this to anyone because it's in my own mind. But what I do is I have different shopping lists for, I peruse H&M. That's one of my favorite stores. I peruse Amazon, but I look for bargains. So I try to get things for under $20, but I really mostly get things for under 10, and I can find some really fabulous stuff. For example, this came in today. It is this shirt, and it has the cutouts for the thumbs. I've seen this on the runway, and it was, I think, $14 from somewhere, some obscure designer, but you can look and find stuff. But beware of stuff, the sizing, because if anything comes from I'm not talking from a company like Walmart that produces stuff in China for the American audience. But if you actually go and find a designer in Tokyo, just remember that a size small in Tokyo will not fit your big toe. Those people are way smaller than we are. And so, be mindful of this. A lot of the Asian sizing can be a lot smaller than what we're accustomed to. And a lot of the people there are smaller than what we're accustomed to as well. No pun intended. So, at any rate, that was racist. That was horrible. Don't listen to that. But no, physically they are smaller people. So, your sizing is going to be a lot different. And often Amazon and the other sites will have charts and you can figure it out. But make your little lists, make your little game with yourself. I always, I've been seeking Bluetooth technology. I'm making the home smart, and some of that can get expensive. But if you really look, and if you look at the deals and all that, you can do these things in your house for fairly cheaply. Which leads me to a point that I was going to make earlier, but of course I segued. The fact that we're all getting a big check. So if getting money in your pocket is a trigger for you, if it summons the inner demons, I would highly, highly, highly suggest handing it to someone, giving it to someone you absolutely trust with your money and don't have access to it. I had a patient in Staten Island actually who didn't trust himself with money, so he had his girlfriend go and purchase like a $5 card to Dunkin' Donuts and $5 card to Subway or whatever. And so he never had cash and he never had access to his bank cards. He just had these little gift cards to get him through the day. And then she gave him a pack of cigarettes with the like 3 cards. I mean, his Metro card, of course. And so he limited his cash accessibility, and it worked. It worked for him. Create a pattern with a loved one. One thing that's worked for me for 8 years. I've been sober for 8 years. I mean, things, alcohol and a little cocaine here and there. But at any rate, it was my sister and I created this pact where she's a school teacher, so she's up at like the butt crack of dawn, like early, and she runs. And so she texted me one. And when I was struggling, if I didn't text her back by like 10 or 11, she knew I was up to something, or she knew I was out there again. So it is a tradition that we carry on, and we still do it to this day. And it's therapeutic for me on a daily. It's my version of a daily affirmation for those of us who are familiar with AA. And there's other publication. Actually, my uncle, he's a believer, and he also sends me these little. They're from the Methodist Church, and he sends them to me. It's called the Upper Room, and it's full of anecdotes daily and prayer and. If that's what you fancy, you can get this, and it's next to nothing, and I really appreciate that from my Uncle Dave in Denver, Colorado. So I appreciate this very much because there, even though I don't identify as a religious person, there's a lot of wisdom in here that we can apply to our own lives, and no matter what our beliefs are. So for my Jewish friends, you can go ahead and get this too. Muslims as well. So it's an all-inclusive thing. At any rate, I've hit the 30-minute mark, and I probably bored you to tears. If you found wisdom in anything I've said, I am very, very happy, even if it's that one person. And so keep on keeping on. Wash your hands. Carry hand sanitizer. But also, don't live in fear. That rhetoric it's not working for me. It shouldn't work for you. Be cautious, be optimistic, talk to people and express your feelings as you would, and have daily gratitude piece. If you're out on the street, if you're lucky enough to be able to go out and someone smiles at you, smile back. or thank a cashier. Thank the folks who bring us food, who bring us our Amazon packages. God bless them, or the higher power you choose, bless them. And we'll get through this. It's only a couple more weeks, so keep on doing you, and I'll see you on the flip side. Thanks. Ciao, ciao.